doing as many platforms as we can do these days. Why not see what works, see what will actually broadcast on Twitter. Part of me wants to check this live right now to see if it's working. While I do that, I am the real _G Warner, going through the Champions League and Europa League lines for this week, which is match day 2. Use all current odds from Bet Online. Unfortunately, there is nothing. There's only one match that has a goal spread on the Conference League. So I know everyone's been tuning in for that one, but we're going to leave that one to the side until maybe a special podcast. Doubt it. But anyway, going to go through Champions League first, then Europa League, and then I'll wrap up so you guys can all get back to your days. So going to start with Ajax and Besiktas. That's the first match of Tuesday, at least based on rotation number. Besiktas getting 2.5 goals, despite all the juice on their side, is a goal higher than I was expecting. Besiktas played Dortmund pretty tight in that first match, and I think we're atop of the Turkish league last time I looked. I watched a little bit of a match of theirs, or maybe it was Galatasaray. So I watched a little bit of that way back when. And, I'm not sure exactly what the reason is for that such a number. Ajax smoked Sporting, and I definitely backed Sporting in that match. That was brutal. But, it was what it was, and we're going to let that one go to the side. So I'm pretty interested in being against Ajax again, as I'm not sure I believe in them. They are a selling club at this point, still the most dominant in Holland or Netherlands. I'm not sure what the politically correct one to say is. But Besiktas played pretty well against Dortmund. Going to look in to see, I can't imagine they're missing that many players that this line would have jumped so much. And Ajax weren't that big of a favorite, albeit on the road at Sporting. So that one I need to investigate because they're not exactly clubs I look at too often. And since we've already done 2 minutes on a match of clubs I don't watch too often, we're going to go quicker through the other ones. Hoping this will be less than 30 minutes, which it should be because there's only Europa League with no Conference League. Next is Shakhtar Donetsk hosting Inter Milan. I'm rewatching a lot of stuff. Just finished the Inter match, which was literally insane from this weekend against Atalanta. Their same matchup from the group last season where Shakhtar Donetsk finished 3rd and Inter finished 4th and dropped out of Europe completely, which is a big embarrassment for them. Didn't matter, though, and could probably help their title challenge. Inter's offense has been incredible this year so far. I'm still kind of shocked that they didn't do better against Atalanta. Could have lost the match, probably could have won the match too. When you sky a penalty, I just asked Bruno Fernandes about that. But ultimately, Shakhtar, they're a team that has lived on possession for the last couple seasons. Added a new manager, Roberto De Zerbi from Sassuolo in Serie A, and he kind of picked up where they left off. They were a shock qualifier for Champions League, knocking out Monaco, and have been pretty competitive in my humble opinion so far. I think Inter are a much better club. I was expecting them to go down quite a bit based on Conte not renewing his contract, selling Lukaku, et cetera, et cetera. But they've been really good, and I've been pretty impressed watching them play. So seeing Shakhtar getting a full goal at home usually would get my ears up, especially after how well they outplayed them when they won Serie A last season. But Shakhtar had shown against, and really why Shakhtar didn't advance to the knockout stage of Champions League last season is because they got smashed by Borussia Mönchengladbach, and they had no offense to speak of to what Inter is putting out there. Did sell Lukaku, but brought in a bunch of players, Correa from Lazio and other great attackers. And Inter was always really deep last season. I think that's another reason why they won Serie A, the Scudetto. But ultimately, getting a full goal is an interesting number on a team that's not bad. But granted, most of these teams in Champions League are competitive. Most are very good. There's only a few that are not great. And so, I don't know. I feel like +1, I wouldn't really bash anybody for taking +1 in any soccer match, really, especially at home in Champions League, where Inter had a really tough match and fought to the death, basically, against Atalanta. Might maybe potentially rotate a little bit for this match, as that was a big one, and they used all they had and then some to try to get the 3 points at home. I think that's probably more than another 3 minutes on this one. We'll probably leave that behind. But I guess looking at Shakhtar a little bit, Inter Milan has all the juice right now on their side. Maybe that climbs a little bit higher. But likely I'll try to avoid fading Inter because they've been really good. Next is the biggest match, I think, of the whole week. It's PSG hosting Manchester City. Currently, PSG getting a quarter of a goal at home. So home underdog with Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe potentially on the field at the same time. Bit of a surprise. But with Di Maria suspended, that should be the starting lineup unless Neymar and Mbappe are suddenly not in there for some reason. And listening to a league podcast, I think it kind of speaks to, or I heard a little bit of talk about PSG and why they haven't been performing as well, despite 8 wins, I think, out of 8 matches in the French league. A pretty embarrassing or disappointing draw to Bruges in the first match day of Champions League. But ultimately, if they're playing Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi all at the same time, that means they have 3 guys that are going to sit up at the midfield line basically the whole time. And that really puts pressure on a defense that hasn't been very good. Certainly PSG has a bunch of great players. I don't know that Ramos has done anything yet, if he's even played. And they're still messing around with Keylor Navas, who was a great keeper last season. So that's a bevy of riches, or whatever it should be called, on that side. But ultimately, I think from where I'm sitting with PSG, I think they're a team I want to be against. Took a pretty early 2-0 lead on Montpellier, who have no real defense at all to speak of, and couldn't add more than that. Definitely didn't cover the spread, any of the closing spreads, or really any of the spreads that week. I think they're in the 2.5 or 2 3/4 range. Struggle with Lyon, and I played a really, really easy schedule in the French league. Other than that, drew with Bruges, which is not good. And so Man City, especially with how well they played this weekend at Chelsea, they look to be the favorite to win this group right now, when I think it was the opposite entering. With that said, Man City had to expend a ton of effort, played Chelsea really tough, put their best lineup out there and then some, probably put a lot into that match. And this is especially tough with Liverpool on the weekend, that if there's a match that they might even slack off a little bit on, I think it's this one potentially, because they're leaps and bounds above Leipzig after a 6-3 victory, and then Bruges as well. And with PSG stumbling and only getting a point from Bruges, I think Man City is probably sitting in a pretty good position. I don't know that Pep's at this point going to rotate, but he also is kind of hard to handicap in FPL, really, because you don't really know who he's going to play and what lineup he's going to put out there. With that said, being a quarter goal favorite on the road to PSG with those goal scorers is saying something. But I got to say that it's not like a slam dunk that I want to back PSG, despite being an underdog player, especially liking good teams at home as an underdog. It checks most of the boxes for me, but I am a little bit worried about the PSG defense and Man City, the way they completely controlled possession against Chelsea. I think they do the same thing here against PSG, which might set up for PSG to lay back and try to spring counters. And that might be great for them. And that might play right into their hands, as that's how they played last season, the season before that under Tuchel. But that's kind of what Tuchel does. I'm not sure that whatever the manager's name is escaping me right now for PSG is really wants. But I expect Man City to have a lot of the ball. So it makes sense that they're a favorite, even on the road. And I think the Man City defense is so much better than PSG's that it's just one of those things where maybe if PSG climbs to a half of a goal favorite or underdog, where a draw wins you a full bet, that makes it worth it. I'm just not sure that's even enough, really, or I doubt it even gets there with most of the juice right now on PSG. The matches tomorrow. I would expect, I guess, most matches they have the big clubs catching all the money, but these are the 2 biggest favorites, I think, to win the whole competition. So I like PSG being a home dog, I'll put it that way, but I'm just not sure that I'm ready to play that just yet, and want to see where this line moves. I think at a half of a goal or a draw at home is enough. I think that is when PSG will make my card. But maybe at a quarter, I stay away from it, because Man City, while this could be a goalless draw, I think that's a very unlikely scenario. And I think based on PSG's defensive woes, I think Man City are more likely to score. So maybe a road favorite is reasonable. I think road pick'em with the juice on PSG would be more appropriate. Maybe that's where this line's heading. But as of right now, I'm not putting PSG in by any means. And we'll see what happens with lineups and such. I don't think there will be any surprises with PSG missing any of the up top guys that pretty much everyone bets them for. Next is Leipzig hosting Bruges. Leipzig a 1.25 favorite with all the juice in the Bruges side. That might be falling to 1. Leipzig's offense has been pretty bad for 2 seasons. I think Jesse Marsch came in and has been building that up in a better kind of format, and they've been playing a lot better. for however long recently. Since he came in, I think Nagelsmann really didn't do much once Timo Werner left. And say what you will about him in Chelsea or playing for Chelsea in the Premier League, but he was lethal on his right foot in the top of the box for Leipzig. They haven't been able to find much. The problem is Bruges, who plays really, really competitively. I think they put a fight in every match that I've watched them on a European stage, despite being a small Belgian club. I think they could mess with Leipzig here, but Leipzig are really used to having these big spreads. Goal and a quarter is probably a normal Saturday for them in the Bundesliga, and they smack teams around regularly in Germany who are probably of a much bigger budget than Bruges. So I would love to back Bruges here because I think going against Leipzig as a big favorite on any sort of stage is a good move. But Leipzig they do a good job of shutting down other offenses that are incapable or that aren't on their level. I think they struggle with good offenses more so than other teams of their stature. But I don't know that Bruges have that. And I think if I was betting it would just really be a fade of Leipzig without having a ton of insight into Bruges. Next is AC Milan hosting Atletico Madrid. Milan currently a pick'em with almost all the juice on Atleti on the road. AC Milan, they've been playing a lot of offensive football, and that's the way to win points and certainly get 3 when you're playing teams that are worse than you, like Spezia, though they struggled with them this weekend. Atleti, on the other hand, with a inexplicable loss to Alaves, who I'm not sure they had earned a point yet in La Liga, and I was gonna, if I thought about it, I forgot to, but I was gonna look to see what their relegation odds were because they looked dead. Well, 4th minute, they got a corner kick headed into the goal, and that was the only goal of the match because Atleti's offense has been a disaster so far this season, really, and was always a question in a Diego Simeone team that feels like Shaka Smart in U.S. Texas college basketball, that he was a defensive coach that never really had an offense no matter what type of level or expectations his team was. I think Simeone has added a bunch of offensive players. Suarez is getting old and certainly would have stayed around potentially at Barcelona if he was better and not aged. I think Atleti are better here. We'll have plenty of opportunities, which will help. But I'm not really sure that a pick'em with the juice on the road makes a lot of sense. I think if it climbs to a quarter, I think then you really start to look at AC Milan. Currently a pick'em, not much for me to do here because I want to draw and win at least a portion of a bet, half of a bet, et cetera, et cetera. So I think I'll wait and see where the AC Milan number goes, as I think, as weird as it sounds, at home, they might be more likely to score at Atleti. Certainly they're more likely to concede, but there's a reason why teams are underdogs. It's not because they're better. The next is FC Porto hosting Liverpool. Currently Porto getting 3/4 of the goal, which to me was a little lower than I expected. Certainly they played really well last season, knocked out Juve and all that, but don't want to overreact to the performance of a year ago. Teams have changed even within this season in the 6 or 7 weeks that we're into the European calendar. But Liverpool, I got to say, I've tried to find places to be against them. I thought about doing it on Brentford this weekend. Not really a believer in the Liverpool offense. I think they played everyone you'd want this weekend with Jota, Salah, and Mane. I think that's their better lineup, whether Firmino's healthy or injured or whatever. They don't press like they did in the past. I don't know if that's a Van Dijk thing because he's clearly hasn't been the same, or they've been managing his minutes or trying not to put him in high stress situations to protect his knee. That's probably the right thing to do. But in terms of an everyday dominant force, they're not the same as they used to be. I think from when I look at Porto getting 3/4, I would need more than that. So if it climbs to 1, maybe that'd be interesting to me a little bit more than it would be now. But it doesn't look like it's getting there based on current juice. Next is Borussia Dortmund hosting Sporting Lisbon, and Sporting got blasted by Ajax last time. Dortmund, as I said already, kind of struggled with Besiktas in a match that they took a big lead and then it got a little bit closer. Anyway, I'm manually calculating the goal spread as I'm talking, but I think probably Dortmund at 1.25 or 1.5 probably is a reasonable number, because one thing we know Dortmund can do is score goals. They can definitely score goals at home. And once they get 1, they're very likely to get 2 and then 3 and then potentially even more than that. Even against good defensive clubs like Union Berlin, they put up 4, which was against tired legs, but that was still, I think, said something about what their offense looks like this season. Erling Haaland is incredible, and the goals he scores are just unfathomable. And based on how Sporting got dominated by Ajax, I don't know that I could even back them at getting 2 goals. That's probably too much, and it's stupid for me to say out loud, but Dortmund are the team that can certainly beat anybody 3 or 4-0. And so I don't know that backing a team who really didn't do well in its debut, certainly a buy low candidate, but I'm not sure how much lower you can get after a Dutch team blew Sporting out like they did. Next is Real Madrid and Sheriff. Real Madrid giving 2.5 goals. Sheriff with a great performance in their first opening match. Not sure to really expect too much of that here. It's a big number for Real Madrid to be giving, considering their state of players, their aged front line, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't know that you can back a Moldovan side against Real Madrid, hoping that they only lose by 2 goals. Moving to Wednesday, Atalanta hosting Young Boys. Atalanta giving a goal and a quarter. As we talked about Inter earlier, questions about their legs, health, all that sort of stuff, as they put in a ton of effort and probably could have won that match. Whatever. It was a big, close match. Certainly eyes were on that one, potentially even with Young Boys coming up, potentially going a little bit softer with the lineup here. Palomino walking off injured, and then Atalanta conceding an equalizer like immediately afterwards is not a good sign for how their offense will hold up, how their defense will hold up. But the Young Boys offense is a much lower level because their budget is really low. But as we saw against Manchester United, they can beat them when they got to play against 10 men. And Atalanta are a team, though, that part of why I backed them to win Serie A, and I thought their performance against Inter was a good sign based on a poor start to the season, was really grasping at anything that looked good. But Atalanta are known for playing wide open. They had a bunch of chances to win the Inter game. Maybe deserved it. I'm not sure. Up to you. But ultimately, they're going to have, I think, a bunch of chances against Young Boys who are used to having possession. They did that against Ferencváros. They had a fair amount of it against Manchester United because they played against 10. That I think they're going to leave a bunch of open spaces for Atalanta. So 1.25 on Young Boys doesn't feel like enough. Because really, if they're down a goal late and pushing forward, Atalanta are surely a team that can pounce and score more. And they're like a Dortmund that they can probably lose to anybody, but they can also beat you 4-0. And I'm not sure that's a number I want on an inferior side that I would just be hoping to lose by a single goal just to win half a unit. Next, we have Zenit hosting Malmo. Currently, Zenit St. Petersburg giving a full goal. It's a big number. I think Malmo were good in qualifying, clearly, to get to this point. Had to get through a bunch of levels and were pretty big underdogs against Rangers and really kind of smacked them around. I'm not sure how Rangers compared to St. Petersburg because they're basically a bunch of the Russian internationals and were competitive last season, but still weren't great. And I think asking them to win by more than a goal here is a lot to ask. So that push on 1 is pretty important. Most of the juice on Malmo at the moment, but I'm going to be looking at them, potentially adding them, as I think this number was a lot bigger than I was expecting. Next on the list is Benfica and hosting Barcelona. Currently, Barcelona pick'em at Benfica is saying something. But Barca have all the juice on their side, likely climbing to a quarter, and that makes me interested in Benfica, who I think are going to be able to defend. Barcelona's been playing youth players. They used to, have world-class and then world-class backups, and that's certainly not who they are now based on their financial difficulties, Messi leaving, et cetera, et cetera. Benfica showed, even as an underdog against PSV in qualification, that they were still a good side that could defend. I like their chances against a Barcelona back line. And I'm not really sure what that's going to look like because they just played a few days ago and didn't exactly play the scariest defenders that I could ever think of on that roster. So we'll see. Imagine Barcelona money will still come in as they're the big club that everyone wants to back, but we'll see because they're certainly in a different state than they usually are. Manchester United then hosts Villarreal in a rematch of the Europa League final that Unai Emery sat back in a block and really kept Manchester United from doing anything. 0-0, I believe, in that one, and 0-0 would work here as Villarreal are currently a goal underdog. With all the juice on the United side, so that might even climb to 1.25, which would be nice. I think in the theater of dreams, Villarreal going in there with not much of an offense is a little bit scary, but when you start climbing above a goal, and with the way Manchester United has been playing, I mean, disaster this weekend with Bruno taking the ball, whether that was a drama or not. I'm sure behind closed doors it might have been. But Pinaldo not taking it, Cristiano Ronaldo not taking that penalty, and Bruno missing it was kind of incredible to watch. Bad loss, and certainly will have them pretty angry, I think, going into this match. But I'm not sure that will help, because I think that will add to the desperation against an Unai Emery side who will just sit back and make Manchester United take it to them. United are best when they have a ton of space. Well, I guess that was before Ronaldo showed up, but they were best at using their speed. And I'm not sure they're going to have a lot of those opportunities, because Villarreal are going to sit back in that disciplined block. So getting a goal in a quarter as that starts to climb looks interesting to me, and I expect Manchester United money to hit until kickoff on Wednesday. Salzburg then hosts Lille. Currently, Salzburg giving a half of a goal, and that's surprising to me. All the juice on the Lille side, so maybe this falls to a quarter. Lille, with a great job winning Ligue 1 last season, have been really bad to start this year. Got an okay draw against Wolfsburg in the first match. I think, though, this is saying a lot that they're a half a goal underdog to Salzburg, who were getting some good respect last year with Jesse Marsch as the manager. He moved on to Leipzig. I'm sure rinse, wash, repeat. I'm not sure how much the soccer manager matters in that type of situation. But Augsburg, they sell their players. They were a great offense, but losing Szoboszlai was a big deal, as he's done really well for Leipzig on a team that really hasn't had much offense for a couple of years now. I don't know how they're giving Lille, with all their flaws, Lille playing a little bit better, got a couple goals from Jonathan David, and they've been playing a little bit better offensively, which was quiet to start the year, and that's taken the pressure a little bit off of their defense. I think Lille's defense is basically the same guys. Yeah, they're a little bit older than they were before. I don't know that that's really a big problem for them, and I think Salzburg, their scoring is going to be it's just a problem for them, as it was last year in Champions League, because this is a whole different level than Austria. So getting a half seems really curious to me, and I might jump back on Lille, even really, really missing Christophe Galtier, who clearly was a huge part of them winning the Liga championship last season. Wolfsburg then hosts Sevilla, currently pick 'em with all the juice on the Sevilla side. And as this starts climbing to a quarter, I'll be a little bit more interested in Wolfsburg, who are a defensive side that I think that will struggle against the spread as a favorite, but as an underdog, especially a home underdog, interests me quite a bit because they play good defense. I'm not sure what the deal is with John Anthony Brooks, and not sure that he should be playing in front of anybody, but maybe he's injured, or I think he got a red in the last match, maybe. So maybe he's suspended. That's probably great addition by subtraction, even though he starts for the U.S. national team and Wolfsburg. I don't know if he's a captain, but probably was close to that level because he's been there a while. He's washed, it seems to me. Sevilla are going to have a ton of possession, and they're going to put a lot of pressure on Wolfsburg. I don't know that they're the same side that want to use Luke de Jong's head anymore, as he's moved on to Barcelona. But their offense doesn't ever seem to be that comfortable to me that they're going to score a ton. But one goal might be enough to beat Wolfsburg, even on the road. It really depends. I think if you're backing Wolfsburg, you have to be pretty confident they're going to score, because even 0-0 on a quarter goal underdog will only pay you half, and that's a lot of risk. I think Sevilla are good for a goal here. Will have a ton of possession and are great at defending because they have the ball so much. I think that'll happen here as well. So maybe not much to do with this number, even if it does climb to a quarter. Juve then hosting Chelsea, currently getting half of a goal, which is saying something for proud Italian franchise club, whatever. Ronaldo moving on said something, and Chelsea coming off the loss to Man City surely will be a lot better in this one. And I think Juve have shown they've had really big problems all Serie A season. I don't expect that to change, nor do I think a big win against a Swedish club like Malmo really says too much. Bigger number than I was expecting, actually. I was hoping to get Chelsea, but that was probably a pipe dream. Bayern then hosting Dynamo Kiev in the last match that I got for Champions League for this match day 2 before we go to Europa League, so hang with us. Bayern giving 2 3/4 goals is a monstrous number, but I've learned that I just don't really want to sit on the other side of Bayern, because they even take a red card in the first half and can still lead 4-0, as I think that happened to me last season. So I'm not sure that I've recovered from that, as you can hear probably in my voice, but they are not a club that I want to be against unless I really think they have a chance at losing, and I don't think they do on Wednesday. Moving to the Europa League, so Lyon hosting Brøndby, currently giving a goal in 3/4. Lyon can score a ton, so that's not too big of a number. Their defensive is an issue, but I'm not sure that Brøndby are going to be a side that can take advantage of that. Sparta Prague then hosting Rangers, currently Pick'em. Rangers are always overrated. Basically, I'm sure all of the UK or Scotland, whatever, bets them every match, and I'm sure it doesn't go well because they have not been very good on a continental setup. Sparta Prague are the inferior of the Prague teams, though, and so I'm not sure that there's that much there for me, especially at a pick'em. Real Sociedad then hosting Monaco. Currently, Sociedad giving a 1/4 of a goal, but all the juice on the Monaco side likely shows this one dropping a pick'em. Monaco have had a really up and down season. A lot of it down. They've been coming around a little bit, playing a little bit better lately, thanks to red cards and good fortune. Getting a 1/4 of a goal. These are two good offenses and not a lot of defense, but I think Monaco are deeper, and Sociedad have been trying to rotate a little bit more than I was expecting. Questions about how seriously Monaco is taking this competition, as they were expecting to be in Champions League entering the season and did a lot of business to try to strengthen the team. So they're pretty deep. They were deep last year. They're even deeper now. And I'm not sure exactly what that lineup's going to look like, but getting a 1/4 is interesting to me from a Sociedad defense that can be really, really problematic. Sturm Graz then hosting PSV. PSV giving 3/4 of a goal on the road. Don't know enough about Sturm Graz to even consider backing them. Getting a 3/4, maybe a +1. I do some research, but doesn't look like it's getting there based on the current line. Lechia Warsaw hosting Leicester. Leicester giving 3/4 on the road. I just don't know if a Polish team can compete with Leicester, though the Leicester offense is pretty bad. If this climbed to 1, I might be interested in the Polish side. Napoli then hosting Spartak Moscow, giving a goal in 3/4. Similar to Lyon, Napoli can score a ton of goals, so I'm not sure I want to hope that they win 1-0 here, though they have some defensive issues, to say the least. Antwerp hosting Eintracht Frankfurt. So Antwerp did well with a good result or victory against Tottenham last year. And that's about the extent of what I know about them currently. Frankfurt, on the other hand, are getting a little bit better, adding some offensive players to a team that really struggled with offense for the first, month or two of the season. They're a team I want to be against. I'm not sure only getting a half on the road, only getting a half at home is enough for me to back a Belgian side. But I will be looking into this one and stay tuned. Follow at the @real_G Warner on Twitter, because you'll see hopefully 15 minutes before game time if I end up falling in love with the Belgian side. Fenerbahce. Nice. Thanks for hanging with. Giving a 1/4 of a goal at home to Olympiacos. Olympiacos did some good business, brought in some good players. So I'm looking at that one for sure, as I'm not sure the Fenerbahce side is really that great at scoring or defending. We're a pretty big underdog against Frankfurt and really controlled a lot of that match. But Frankfurt were playing really, really poorly at that point. So I'm not sure how much to take from that. Olympiacos, I think, are a decent side, even coming from Greece. Lazio then hosts Lokomotiv Moscow. Lazio giving a goal and a 1/4. Big number, but they're going to be able to score a ton of goals. And I don't really know much about Lokomotiv Moscow, though they're probably the other team from Russia that have a bunch of Russian internationals. They're older, and maybe they're drugged. I don't know. Don't want to accuse anybody, certainly. Who cares? They could probably hang with Lazio, but the problem is Lazio can score a ton, and that's a scary proposition to be against. Marseille then hosting Galatasaray. Marseille giving 3/4 of a goal. Leicester has kind of rubbed off Marseille a little bit, as they've been struggling defensively and not scoring as many as they have. They're great at coming back when they fall behind, but that's not going to work as a 3/4 goal favorite at home against Galatasaray. The problem is I'm not sure how good this Turkish team is, and based on that Besiktas line, that doesn't make me feel very good. Sporting Braga then hosting Midtjylland. Braga giving a 1/4 of a goal with all the juice on the Braga side. I think this is climbing to a half, and Midtjylland are a small enough side. I'm not sure that they're good enough to back here, even though Braga, I think, actually played fairly well at Red Star in Belgrade, but ended up giving up a late goal on a stupid penalty. It's just my life in general, or in a nutshell, in betting soccer. But I'm not sure what to really do with that one. Ludogorets then getting a 1/4 from previously mentioned Red Star. Crvena Zvezda. There you go. I don't know what to do with this one, but Red Star as a road favorite does seem a little bit pricey for what they actually are. All the juice on the Ludogorets side at home, so it might close a pick 'em, and then I can look away and avoid this one. Celtic then hosting Leverkusen, getting half of a goal seems like way too low considering how well Leverkusen have scored this season, and Celtic routinely embarrassed themselves on this level. Ferencváros then hosting Betis, currently Ferencváros getting 3/4 of a goal at home with all the juice on the Betis side. Maybe that climbs to 1. It gets a little more interesting. But Ferencváros were a pretty big underdog against Young Boys in qualification for Champions League. So Betis, they have some defensive issues, center backs injured, et cetera, et cetera. But they're still a La Liga side that should be more than good enough to beat Ferencváros in Hungary. Genk then hosting Dinamo Zagreb, half a goal favorite with all the juice in the Dinamo Zagreb side. It's kind of a surprise to me. I didn't expect this one to be this big by any means, and thought maybe even to pick them, or I was expecting Dinamo Zagreb to have a lot more credit here. Interested in them, backing them getting a half of a goal. Currently, we're a road draw as a win. We'll see where this number goes and what lineups look like, but I'm going to have to dig into this one a little bit more because I'm not sure I can name a player from Genk. West Ham then hosting Rapid Vienna. Currently West Ham giving a goal in 3/4. It's a lot for a defensive side that really aren't going to play a ton of offense or push you forward or really put a ton of pressure of you offensively. But I'm not sure about an Austrian defense, as I don't know a ton about them, unfortunately. Getting 1 3/4 goals is a lot. This one looks like it's heading back towards 1.5. Still a big number for West Ham to cover. But they're probably a significantly big favorite, or at least they spend a lot more money on the West Ham side than they do on a team from Vienna. So that, I think, will wrap up this edition, Match Day 2, Champions League, Europa League. Thanks for hanging with me, watching on Twitter or wherever you're finding this YouTube, anything. I'm trying all these out to see what fits the best. But thanks for coming in, and I will see you soon.